Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. We're on the Burlington waterfront today. We're checking on research being done to decrease the nutrient runoff that ends up in our lakes, rivers, and streams. Researchers with UVM Extension's Crop, Soil, and Pasture team in Middlebury are working with farmers to find the right formula to increase soil health and improve water quality. There have been starts and stops along the way, but new findings hold promise for a win-win scenario for both farmers and Lake Champlain. Across the Fence's Keith Silva has our story.
Mark this edge.
It's late August, and UVM Extension agronomy specialist Kirsten Workman, along with Kristen Williams and Daniel Inferna, are quite literally plotting out how to improve Vermont's water quality.
We're in a soybean field laying out some demonstration cover crop plots. And one of the things we're looking at is, instead of just winter cereal rye, can we do these cover crop mixtures that folks have become more interested in? So we're basically trying 10 different mixes and seeing how they perform in different cropping systems and planted at different times, and seeing how they do here in Vermont on different soil types.
Winter rye is the most widely used cover crop in Vermont. Farmers like it because it's a low-cost, reliable, and beneficial tool that gives them, agronomically and financially, the most bang for the buck. For Workman, finding the right mix of cover crops increases yields, improves soil health, and prevents nutrient runoff.
Our goal is to have a living, growing plant 12 months a year. That's the best case scenario. That can be really difficult, especially in our growing season here in the north. Winter rye is really a great cover crop because it's so winter hardy. In the fall, it doesn't grow a whole lot. Unless you're planting really early without competition, it's not going to tiller and really fill in. Where if you're planting something like oats or a daikon forage type radish, you're going to get a lot of good ground cover in the fall. And then in the spring, when the winter rye does really well, if you mix those things together, then you kind of get the best of both worlds.
This all-for-one approach extends beyond the farm gate. Cover crops curb erosion and keep nutrients in the soil. By keeping the ground covered, nutrients are locked in place and don't run off.
So cover crops and reduced tillage and good nutrient management planning are really the backbone to our water quality best management practices when it comes to Lake Champlain and excess phosphorus. If we can keep that phosphorus in the field and the nitrogen and the potassium in the field and have it fertilize a crop and have high yielding cash crops that then take up that phosphorus and nitrogen and potassium, we'll keep it from then getting into our watersheds. So we all have a watershed. Every field is going to drain somewhere. And wherever there's low spots, if you have erosion, then that soil is going to move off the field, probably into a ditch, and then all of that then eventually ends up downstream.
The biggest impacts on water quality in Vermont come from roads, parking lots, housing developments, water treatment facilities, and agriculture.
Eric, when did you plant this winter rye?
This is about the first week of October.
Eric Clifford is a dairy farmer in Starksboro. He understands what's at stake for his business and for Vermont when it comes to water quality.
Certainly some of the practices that were done in the past have contributed to some of the water quality issues that we have here in Lake Champlain. And so we've inherited some of those problems. We've also created some of them ourselves. So we just need to step up, do some better management. We'd like to think that we're going to be able to increase the soil health, have a clean lake, and make a good living at the same time. And that's what we're striving for.
Clifford's farm was another test site for Workman's research on cover crop mixes.
We're really excited about working with UVM Extension because we haven't had really concrete recommendations based on each of our soil types that we have on my farm. And those are what we need in order to make good decisions. And really for the first time, Extension is going to be able to give us those kind of recommendations. But what we've been learning, going along with and working with UVM Extension has just been a lot of fun. It's been really educational, and we think that down the road, it's just going to be good for our farm and the lake.
All the farmers that I've worked with are interested in being part of the solution, not part of the problem. I don't think any farmer wants to be part of the problem in Lake Champlain. So what we're trying to do is identify practices that make sense for water quality and soil health, but don't mortgage the farmer's productivity or bottom line. We're trying to keep cover crop mixes sort of in a target range of cost per acre, and then do it in a way that will hopefully actually not only not detriment yields and not detriment the bottom line, but really actually improve all those things.
We know it in gallons.
To manage nutrients and measure what effect cover cropping has on their fields, farmers create nutrient management plans. Among other things, these plans evaluate soil loss and nutrient runoff.
All farms that have a nutrient management plan are estimating their soil loss already. And when we add to that model that they cover cropped, oftentimes it reduces their expected soil loss by half. If you have a cover crop, you're going to see reduced erosion and less phosphorus loss. And then we can do some estimation on that. Because farmers want to know that too. They want to know that if they're going to go through the time and the energy and the money and the effort to, let's say, drive into their soybean field and plant a cover crop, that not only hopefully will it help their soybean crop next year, but they want to know that they're helping. They want to be able to say, yeah, I did something and it's helping Lake Champlain.
It's November, and the soybean field looks much different. The soybeans have been harvested, and all that remains is what researchers call residue. As for the cover crops, they're thriving. Workman lays out a line with tiny beads on it. As she walks up and down the line, she tallies the number of times a cover crop touches one of the beads. From this number, she determines the percent of coverage on the field.
As an agronomist, I want to know how the cover crop's growing. So does the residue inhibit the cover crop from being able to grow? And I think we say no. There's not enough residue out here to keep the cover crop from growing. We've also planted it before the residue was there, so it got a little head start. And then also we look to see, can we gain any benefit from the cover crop above and beyond the residue that's out here? And again, I think right now our answer to that is yes. And definitely in our corn silage fields, where the entire crop gets pulled off the field, we definitely see benefits from the cover crop.
Another aspect of this research is to find out what percentage of nutrients get absorbed by the cover crops themselves. After being dried, the crop is weighed and then put through a grinder. The ground up materials are sent away to a lab to be tested for phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen. This is the first year of a 2-year study that's funded by an innovation grant from the Natural Resources Conservation Service in Vermont. Workman is already looking forward to spring when she can see how the crops did over the winter and how she can take what she's learned and further expand this research.
We're trying to experiment and fail first so that the farmer we don't give them bad advice and they do it on 100 acres and they fail on 100 acres. I'd rather try something, fail on 1,000 square feet, and then as we learn, then we're seeing farmers adopt new things. So if we can find practices that work well, benefit the environment, help the farm production, then it's a win-win for everybody, and we win in the lake, and farmers will adopt those practices, and hopefully it helps them stay in business longer, and hopefully we have a better functioning system as a whole.
The story of improving water quality in Vermont is far from over. But on these plots, there's promise that a solution is in the mix. In Charlotte, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, Kirsten joins me now in the studio. Thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Now, you've got some results from your research that you're going to share in a moment. But first, if cover cropping works so well, why aren't all farmers doing it?
Well, hopefully we're on our way to that. Right? We've seen huge increases in the last 2 to 3 years of farmers adopting this particular practice. And part of that has been, incremental. Mm-hmm. So they start and they try it on a few acres and it gets bigger and bigger. But there are a lot of challenges involved in planting and growing cover crops. Amongst with your other cash crops. So, timing, weather, soil, finances all play a role. And so that's really what we're trying to do with this research is help identify those challenges and find the best way to work around them so all farmers can adopt them.
Now, you spent the beginning of your career working with farmers in Washington State. How does agriculture in the Northwest differ from the Northeast?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. I worked in the Puget Sound region, so not like where they grow wheat, but in the rainforest. But there were a lot of similarities. So I worked in the Puget Sound region, which had very similar water quality concerns and issues. Because it's a marine ecosystem, the nutrient and issues they worry about there are slightly different. We look at nitrogen and fecal coliform, but the practices really were very similar in terms of what could a farmer do to improve water quality, and a lot of it was about manure management and cover cropping and all the same things that we're working with farmers here.
What can you tell us about the results of the research that we saw in the video and the cover crop mixes?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is that this particular study, we planted these cover crops at different times, both while the corn or soybean crop was growing and then after it was harvested. And then we did these 10 different three-way mixes. And I think what we know is that if you really pay attention to details, we can get these cover crops to grow, and it works. So that's the big piece. The finer details that we're discovering now and we'll be looking at in the spring is, do these mixtures really outperform the single species winter cereal rye? And in many cases, the answer has been yes. And what we also find is that by combining different crops, so an oat or a radish or a legume, we really do see increased benefits, especially in the fall, from that cover crop performance. And they love manure too, which is great. So
you're going into your second year of this research project. What changes are you hoping to make? What's got you excited?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things is soybeans. We have more soybeans growing in the state of Vermont, and we're realizing that there is really good opportunities to be planting cover crops there, which has been even a bigger challenge than corn because it comes off so late, but we're finding that we can plant them early and really get them established well. We've also sort of tweaked our mixes to see what works the best. And so we've made those changes, and then really wrapping up as we collect that final spring information and being able to present it to farmers. So we'll be presenting some of this at our No-Till Cover Crop Symposium on the 17th, and I'm excited to share those initial results. And then really the most exciting part is to watch it get adopted. So I've had a farm where we've done some of this work now do a three-way cover crop mix on 900 acres. And
really?
And that's what you really want to see. So
is that one thing that farmers have to kind of see it work on a different farm before they try it?
Definitely, or even try it in a small. I think that farmer planted it on maybe 20 or 30 acres last year, and then was happy with it, and so did all of their corn acres this year. So definitely seeing other farmers try it, see it on soil types that are like theirs, try it in some small form on their own farm, and then increase incrementally as they go.
Is one of the challenges that there are all different kinds of soil types on one particular farm?
Yeah, even in one particular field. So
really?
yeah. So looking at soil types and crop rotations, all of that can be pretty complex to make sure that these systems really perform well and work well for the farmer and for water quality.
Now, finances are a huge issue
Yep.
too. So how do you, you can't walk, and we saw you walking and
Yes.
spreading seeds. So
that was me
wouldn't work on a
pretending.
big farm.
No. So what we try and do is we try and quantify the cost, both seed cost, and then we estimate what it would cost to establish those crops. So there's lots of different ways you can plant them, and we take that into account. Typically, the actual planting of the crop is about the same cost, whether you're going in early or going in later. It's the seed cost that really makes the difference. And so we've tracked all of that. And actually after the first year, we got rid of some of the mixes because it was like $100 an acre and it didn't make sense.
Too much.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what we mentioned the rye and the radishes.
Yep.
What else is in the seed crops?
So the original project was set up to have one grass or grain, one legume like a pea or a vetch or a clover, and one brassica crop like a radish or a rapeseed or a mustard or a turnip. And so we stuck mostly to that. This year we made a few tweaks, and we've combined winter cereal rye with oats and then with a brassica or legume, and we're really liking what that looks like. So we'll be paying more and more attention to that. We get better fall performance, and then in the spring, actually, the winter rye, which is the only thing left, can do better than if you just planted it by itself.
Well, excellent. Well, if you'd want to learn more about Kirsten's research, you can visit the website on the Champlain Valley Crop and Soil Pasture Team. The website's on your screen, and you can find the research information as well as links to the team's blog, Facebook page, and contact information. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.